is up and welcome back to the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast, your encyclopedia for the college basketball season. We had a busy weekend of college hoops. We saw upset after upset on Saturday, one of the most heavy upset days of the entire season. We saw a bunch of close games on Sunday. Last night, Monday, we didn't have very much of anything. It was the College Football National Championship. So not a lot of great games. Penn State beat Rutgers. That's about the only notable thing that went on. But today's show, going to be a traditional layout. We're going to talk about all the big results from the weekend. Briefly, we're going to go over these quickly, go through what impacted, what will be our new rankings that we're going to talk about here, our new Bracket Science Power Rankings. Of course, it is Tuesday right now, about 10 in the morning. This podcast should release about noon, hopefully, once we get it up and uploaded. But the AP poll was released the day before on Monday, so we're going to talk about that briefly, new rankings, and then the main part of the show, as will happen on every Monday/Tuesday show, our full bracketology field, the field of 68. We also have our Bubble Watch that we'll talk about. Got a graphic for that. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, we will talk about the games to watch for this week of college basketball with the opening KenPom betting lines. We're going to be ad-free. We're going to dive right into it. So like and subscribe. Hit those buttons below. Follow us on social media at Bracket Science with 2 S's. That's on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Yes, TikTok is back. Go check us out on there, posting good stuff. Without further ado, let's dive into the Friday results. Just briefly, we'll talk about, 3 games here, not in depth at all. The biggest game of the weekend for Ohio State athletics would have to be hosting Indiana, right? They lose in overtime 77-76. Indiana picks up a much-needed win. Ohio State really starting to fall off in basketball, of course, but I think they had bigger things in mind this weekend after winning that huge national championship. But Indiana and Mike Woodson go in, get a tremendous win. Mike Woodson at the end of the game just kind of showed, just kind of put his hands in the air like, oh, thank God, maybe I have a chance of saving my job. I don't think that's going to happen, but he does pick up a good win here at Ohio State. Only other thing to mention, I apologize, I can't remember if it was before this Ohio State game or the game before. Anyways, Luke Goody, transfer from Illinois, transfers to Indiana. So a lot of people from Illinois don't really like that. They're kind of rivals, Indiana and Illinois, pretty big rivalry there. Transfers to Indiana. Indiana lost by 25 to Illinois at home. It was ugly. Went and got drilled at Iowa by 25 again, I think, or something like that. Then Luke Goody comes out and says, he's like, yeah, the Indiana fan base is booing us. When we turn it around, don't come back and be fans with us, or something to that extent. Not a very good approach. Indiana fans are not happy with you guys because you fail to reach your preseason ranking every single year. And then you're like, all right, well, if we start playing well, don't come back. This is not the route to take with a fan base, let alone from a guy who he averages 8 points a game. I think the whole Midwest just hates Luke Goody at this point. And quite frankly, this team is like not, if they turn it around, like you really think they're going to make a Sweet 16, Elite 8 run? I don't think so. They'll be lucky to get into the tournament. Just an interesting little note there in his presser. I apologize. It was either before the Ohio State game or after the Iowa game or something. It was something stupid, but weird approach there by Luke Goody. Not the right thing to say in that moment. Anyways, sticking in the Big Ten, Iowa loses at UCLA. UCLA rebounds 94-70. Boise State loses at New Mexico in the Mountain West, 84-65. Boise State been really disappointing this year. And then the only other game we got to talk about, we have the graphic pulled up so you can see some of the notable results. Nothing too fantastic, but DePaul wins their first game in the Big East in forever, it seems, winning at Georgetown 73-68. Chris Holtmann gets the job done. DePaul will not go winless in the Big East this year. This was the first time in 39 games, I'm pretty sure, 38 or 39 games. Good for Chris Holtmann, good for DePaul. It's going to start climbing back up towards at least somewhat relevancy. It already kind of has. The main day was Saturday, the day of upsets. We're going to talk about this. You've got the graphic pulled up. We're going to just go in numerical order of where the teams are ranked. Number 1, Auburn, without Jonai Broom yet again, travels to number 23, Tennessee, and wins 70-68. Auburn is now 17-1 on the year with 10 quad 1 wins. That is absolutely outrageous. They are your number 1 overall seed right now. They're number 1 in the AP poll, number 1 in most human rankings, number 1 in bracketology metrics as well. I will say, though, Duke, now number one at Ken Palm. Duke has overtaken Auburn. I think Auburn's the best team in the country. With 10 quad one wins out of 17 wins, I think they're the best team in the country. I don't see the argument of, yeah, well, Duke beat them at home. Yeah, well, if Duke played at Auburn, Auburn probably would have won that game. If, the home court advantage is such a huge thing in college hoops. You have to defend it. Auburn has, without a doubt, the best resume in the country right now. Without Joe Nybroom, they now get a week off to let Joe Nybroom recover a little bit. We'll talk about them here a little bit more in bracketology, of course. The number 2 team in the country, Iowa State, did not fare as well, losing at West Virginia 64-57. What a job by Darian DeVries at West Virginia, and Javon Small putting himself in the conversation as the not just first team all Big 12, but Big 12 Player of the Year. He has been just spectacular all season long. West Virginia is playing without who is supposed to be their best player. Darian DeVries, Coach Darian DeVries' son, Tucker DeVries, has been out for a while, but West Virginia just keeps winning, well coached. Great team. They are solidly in the tournament. We'll talk about them in bracketology here in a little bit. Number 4, Alabama travels to number 8, Kentucky, and picks up a win, 102-97. If you watch this game, this was about as entertaining of a basketball game as you can expect, which is kind of what we thought was going to happen with these two incredible offenses. Now, Auburn has the best offense in the country. There's no doubt about that. I think right behind them, the next two I would pick, Alabama and Kentucky. Both teams with a ton of firepower. Neither team really defends either, so we got 199 combined points in this game, but Alabama picks up the big win. Grant Nelson had a great one in this game. Mark Sears playing a lot better. Alabama, one of the highest ceilings in the entire country. Sticking in the SEC, as we'll talk about probably more than just about any conference because they have the most ranked teams, let's be honest. Texas is not one of those ranked teams and not one of those good teams in the SEC this year. Loses at number 5, Florida, 84-60. Texas is going to really start looking at potentially picking up one of these new coaches in the next cycle of coaching hires. That's kind of one of the thoughts that I wanted to express. Ohio State, Texas, you hire from within, but then you see and they're underperforming. Let's be honest, they're underperforming their preseason rank, they're underperforming their Ken Pom rank. But then you look at some of the schools, the Louisvilles, the West Virginias. Ohio State was not good last year. Texas was a 7 seed, but it's Texas. Huge brand, should be top 5 seeds at worst every year, both those schools. You see the Louisvilles, who was awful last year. West Virginia, awful last year. They go out and hire proven winners as coaches. They come out, both teams now in the AP poll this week. Texas, Ohio State, nowhere near the AP poll. So that's kind of where this trend is heading. We'll see if Texas will have the guts to make the change. We'll see if Ohio State has the guts to make the change. But just kind of one of those things. Go get some proven winners. Now, I know there's some examples where it hasn't worked out as good. You got Washington with Danny Sprinkle. Danny Sprinkle won everywhere he went until he went to Washington this year, struggling a little bit. Still, a better team this year Washington is than they were last year. So if you're looking for that constant improvement, maybe changes in the air. Same goes for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt hosted Tennessee, number 6 Tennessee, and beat them 76-75. Vanderbilt was horrible the past couple seasons. They go out, hire Mark Byington, a winner at James Madison, and I think they're 26th in the AP poll this week. They're not ranked. They very easily could be. They're really good. They won, I apologize, one of the preseason tournaments, or made it to the championship, one of the MTEs. I apologize, I can't remember what it was called. But Vanderbilt off to a great start in SEC play, 76-75 over Tennessee. Mark Byington, great job there. Xavier goes to number 7 Marquette and beats them 59-57. Marquette could not score the basketball in this one. The ball just would not go in the hoop. Cam Jones really been struggling as of late, but Xavier picking up the huge win to crawl them close to the bubble. I don't have them as a first 8 team out, but I would probably have them as about the 9th or 10th team out, and they'll have some opportunities in the Big East. They're getting better and better. Also on Saturday was a rivalry game. Kansas State traveled to number 9 Kansas. Kansas held them off 84-74. Coleman Hawkins played well for Kansas State. Kansas State's now 7-9. They're no good at all, but kind of showed up in this one. Kind of told me a little bit about Kansas. I don't think Kansas is, I expected them to have them figured it out by now. It's sad that they're top 10 in the AP poll, or I can't remember where they They dropped now to number 12 in this week's AP poll, but we're seeing this as like a disappointing season. That's kind of just how highly thought of Kansas is, and Bill Self. Just something about this team just doesn't really click as of now. Their rotations have been off. I don't see them as a national championship contender right now, quite frankly. They got a lot of talent. Maybe they'll figure it out, but don't really look the part as of now. They should have blown out Kansas State. I know it's a rivalry game and it's always close, but they're so much better than Kansas State, and it was neck and neck there for a while. Sticking in the Big 12, number 10 Houston traveled to UCF and beat them by 69-68, thanks to a Juwan Roberts layup with about a second left. It was just kind of a bizarre little ending there. Kind of bailed Houston out of kind of getting another, iffy loss. Houston now has 2 quad 1 wins at least, because of West Virginia keeps winning, so that win over West Virginia at Houston ends up being quad 1. This also a quad 1 win at UCF, I'm pretty sure. But anyways, their metrics say they have 2 quad 1 wins, but you expect them. Came into this game 13.5 point favorites over UCF and held them off by 1. A little bit concerning. I think this Houston team we all see can be really good. They have the personnel, they have the coaching, but just hasn't really all come together yet. A team it is all coming together for. Number 17 Purdue is starting to roll. They win at number 13 Oregon 65-58. Oregon starting to lose a few games in the Big Ten with a tough schedule. Purdue really starting to roll. We'll talk about them here in Bracketology in a bit. Creighton picks up a huge win traveling to number 14 UConn 68-63. Creighton gets the job done, controlled just about the entire game. Stephen Ashworth, great. Ryan Kalkbrenner, great. Jemiah Neal was the story in this game. He went off in this one, his best game in a Creighton uniform. They get the job done and move solidly into the tournament after being a bubble team. This is just the win that they needed. Good for Greg McDermott. Number 21 Ole Miss traveled to number 15 Mississippi State in that big rivalry game. First time these two teams have played each other where both teams were ranked. Pretty cool there. Mississippi State got off to like a 14-2 start, like 21-4 or something, 21-6 maybe. And then Ole Miss, quite frankly, after that slow start, looked like the better team the entire game, got it to overtime, and then Mississippi State ended up winning the game 84-81. I left this game, I think most did, a lot more impressed with Ole Miss than Mississippi State. I'm a little bit concerned about this Mississippi State team. I know this is just picking hairs because they're winning. I mean, you beat a team that was undefeated in the SEC, the best conference in basketball. You beat them in overtime 84-81. I'm a little bit concerned about just their ceiling, I guess, this season. Not that big on RJ Melendez, and Riley Kugel had a great one in this game. He was knocking down shots. Still, just those two together just doesn't seem to. And Josh Hubbard, really, he's fantastic. Didn't really play too fantastically well in this game, but to me, this team is. I don't even know what it is about this team. It's just I don't see the ceiling there. I thought Ole Miss was the better team just watching this game to the eye test the entire way. I think without that home court environment, Ole Miss definitely would have won. I came into the game thinking Mississippi State was, quite frankly, just better than Ole Miss. I left thinking Ole Miss was better than Mississippi State. It's one game, but really impressed with Ole Miss. But Mississippi State, something about a team who just gets the job done in an ugly win. They get it done 84-81. A lot of foul calls, too. A lot of end-of-game reviews. This was a tough watch at the end of the game. The SEC's got to do something. These games... Maybe it's just because we're watching more SEC games because they're all ranked games pretty much. But the SEC, so many fouls called, the end-of-game reviews, something's got to change. It's ugly. Maybe the most surprising result of Saturday was Santa Clara traveling to number 16 Gonzaga, picking up a win, 103-99. Gonzaga, how do you give up 103 points on your home court to a team that's probably fifth or sixth best, maybe top four? Still, middle upper pack of the WCC. This Gonzaga team is really falling off. I had Gonzaga after they beat Baylor early in the year, and then they won at San Diego State early in the year. I had them up as number one. I had them as the number one team in the country at one point. The fall off since then has been absolutely incredible. Just fallen off completely. They're on the bubble. They are not ranked in this week's AP poll, and they are like a 8 or 9 seed. Like, you don't have much room to operate in the WCC. Arizona, who has been playing extremely well, came in undefeated, traveling to Texas Tech in a tough environment. Texas Tech picked up the win 70-54. The score was closer, or the game was closer than the score indicates, but Texas Tech ends up picking up the huge win. Clemson goes to Pitt and beats them 78-55 in overtime. Pitt, it's starting to spiral a little bit. For those who saw it might have been a Reddit post or something about the Pitt student section fan who just chanted out something with a curse word at Jeff Capel, like figure it out, like we're starting to downhill, and then basically the Pitt staff spent like the next couple minutes just trying to find this guy. Like that's I don't know. It's just a mess over at Pitt. It was a weird little scenario, kind of went viral on social medias, but Pitt, you shouldn't be worried about one student in there saying a curse word, and you should be worried about not dropping off fifth in the net in the opening net and have just dropped off completely. They're sub 500 in a bad ACC conference. Arizona State traveled to Cincinnati. Cincinnati got the job done 67-60. Arizona State, a poorly coached team. I will say it right now, a very poorly coached team by Bobby Hurley. Arizona State came in. I had them ranked at one point. They had a great non-conference and have just, as soon as they hit Big 12 play, have just fallen off, as Arizona State does every year. They always have great non-cons, and then they hit actual competition and just go straight downhill. Bobby Hurley, in kind of a make it or break it year for his career, not good. Tons of NIL money at Arizona State. Got Jaden Quaintance, who expected a lot of money. They got a good team. It's not good. It's not good at Arizona State. I don't think they're going to be in the tournament yet again this year. Stanford goes to North Carolina and beats them 72-71 thanks to a Jalen Blake's last couple second shot. How about that? Duke transfer. Started his career at Duke, transfers to Stanford in just that comeback game, wins it for Stanford at North Carolina. This just kind of showed that Kyle Smith is a better coach than Hubert Davis. North Carolina is a lot more talented than Stanford. Stanford just kind of coach circles around him because Kyle Smith is great, for those who don't know. Stanford, if Kyle Smith stays there, maybe next year, maybe the year after, watch out for Stanford. That program's going to keep going upward. Kyle Smith, one of the most underrated coaches in the country. UNLV goes to San Diego State and wins 76-68. San Diego State hanging on kind of by a thread as of now. Arkansas loses at Missouri. Arkansas still has not won a game in SEC play. Missouri off to a great start. 83-65. John Calipari's team stinks. They stink. There's only a couple teams left, Arkansas being one of those, who do not have a win in conference play. Arkansas, Miami, and that absolute debacle that is the absolute debacle that's going on there. You got Colorado and you have South Carolina as the only teams who have not won a conference game yet. Now let's talk about Sunday real quick before we dive into some rankings. The big one was number 19 Illinois traveling to number 12 Michigan State. Michigan State held them off 80-78. I know Illinois fans are not real happy about the whistle in this game. There was a compilation of Yakachonis fouled out in this game, and there was a compilation of his fouls, and quite frankly, none of them looked like maybe at max 2 or 3 of them should have been called fouls. Something about these refs. What is going on? Do we need to change the rules, or do we need new refs? I don't know. It's not fun to watch, but Michigan State continues to roll. Illinois, their ceiling is really high. They're a really good basketball team. Played this well without Yakachonis playing a lot of minutes in this one due to the foul trouble. Number 20, Michigan hosted Northwestern, held on to a victory, 80-76. Game went to overtime. Michigan was dominating everyone, and then they lost at Minnesota and now barely pick off Northwestern at home. And Northwestern, they're a good team, good coach team. But and then Chris Collins, coach of Northwestern, after the game, had some things to say about Vlad Golden, Michigan's big man, who's been playing fantastic, by the way, just saying he's basically a flopper, which quite frankly he is, but he's a good basketball player. He's been playing well, and he does just kind of, I don't know if flopper's the right word, like he's always on the ground. He just falls, and I don't know. There's a lot of acting involved, I will say that. How about TCU going to number 25 Baylor and picking up a win 74-71? This is not what Baylor needed. Baylor is no good this year. Baylor falling towards like 7-8 seed range right now. They're hanging on. They're hanging on by a thread. Now Nebraska loses at Maryland 66-69 as well. Maryland rebounds. Nebraska looked pretty solid in this one. Both good teams. All right, now let's talk about the AP poll that was released on Monday. Auburn is your number one team. Duke just strictly jumps Iowa State. They flip. Duke is number 2. Iowa State's 3. Alabama's up to 4. Those will be your 4 1 seeds in that order as well. Alabama has the second best resume out of anyone in the country in terms of quadrant wins. Now, the computers don't like them as much as Duke, and Iowa State and Alabama are similar in computers, but Alabama starting to look the part. At 5 is Florida, 6 Tennessee. Houston is up to number 7 just quietly. 7th ranked team in the country. Like we said, we see it with this team, but will they do it? Will they play to their potential? At 8, Michigan State climbs up into the top 8. Kentucky's at 9, and Marquette drops to number 10. Rounding out the top 25, 11 through 25. This is, by the way, credit to NCAA March Madness on Twitter, just their typical Twitter page. Purdue is up to number 11, playing great ball. Kansas drops to 12. Texas A&M is at 13. Mississippi State at 14. Oregon's at 15. Ole Miss down to 16. Like I said, Ole Miss, keep an eye out on them. They're a really good basketball team. 17, Illinois. 18, Wisconsin. Also watch out for Wisconsin. Not really many people talking about them. They are really good. Number 19, UConn still ranked. 20, St. John's enters the rankings. 21, Michigan. 22 through 25 is exactly what I love to see in college basketball. Missouri, after not winning a game in the SEC last year, is up to 22 in this year's AP poll. West Virginia, without who was supposed to be their best player, is up to 23 after a horrible year last year. Memphis at 24. Love to see mid-majors in there. And 25, Louisville enters the rankings for the first time this year. Love to see that from the Louisville Cardinal. And shout out to Pat Kelsey. Let's talk about our power rankings now for a little bit of more in-depth and resume build rankings along with a little bit of eye test. So my rankings are resume, eye test, computer, all combined into one. Number 1, Auburn, not even a thought behind it. Auburn is, I think, the national championship team as of right now, especially once they get Jani Broome back. Number 2, Duke. 3, Iowa State. 4, Alabama. 5, Florida. 6, Tennessee. All matches up with the AP poll. It's kind of an easy one to rank for the top 5 there, for the top 6 there, excuse me. At number 7, Kentucky. Number 8, I do have Houston, but I'm questionable about it. I kept Kansas in the top 10. I think Kansas is better than Marquette and Michigan State still. Kansas kind of played really bad at the beginning of the year and beat Michigan State. I know I don't believe in head-to-head, but it was 2 very different teams now. But I still just want to see Michigan State get really, really tested on the road or on a neutral site. You know, like, not saying that hosting Illinois is just a pushover, but, you know, Illinois has shown that Illinois didn't win at Tennessee. Are they really as elite as we think? I don't know. I kept Kansas at number 9. I do have Marquette at number 10, matching with the AP poll. 11, Michigan State. 12, Texas A&M. 13, Purdue. 14, Ole Miss. 15, St. John's. I got St. John's a little higher than most. They're really good. Their roster is fantastic. 16, Mississippi State. So, yes, I did put Ole Miss above Mississippi State. Ole Miss, quite frankly, their resume, I think, is a tad better than Mississippi State. Like I said, I know this is one of the rare instances, probably hear me say this once in the year, I left impressed with Ole Miss more than Mississippi State, even though Mississippi State won the game. Home court really, really did a great job there for Mississippi State. But at 17, I have Illinois. People are going to say that's too low. I have them as the best 5-loss team in the country. So if anyone says that's too low, just tell them that. 18, Wisconsin, right there. Sneaky Final Four potential in Wisconsin. Watch out for the Badgers. 19, Memphis. That loss to Temple. Memphis lost to Temple, by the way. I can't remember when that was. That was last week. We talked about that on the last show. I don't hate it as much as most people think. Temple's pretty good. Don't mind Temple. That's on the road. Normally, I'd go after Penny Hardaway. I don't think that's that bad of a loss. 20, Oregon. 21, UConn. 22, Missouri. 23, Michigan. 24, Utah State. 25, Texas Tech. 26, I do still have Arizona. I think Arizona's good. I kept them in there. 27, West Virginia. 28, Louisville. 29, Georgia. And 30, Clemson. Good for Clemson. My first team off the list, just like the first team off the AP poll, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt could be ranked. They're really good. Maryland, Creighton, St. Mary's, Gonzaga, and UC Irvine. How about the UC Irvines? Let's move on to the bracketology, the meat of the show. The 1 seeds, as we already mentioned, Auburn, Duke, Iowa State, Alabama. 2 seeds are pretty, self-explanatory as well. Tennessee, Florida, Marquette, Kentucky. Those are your 2 seeds. 3 seeds, a lot of Big Ten heavy. Oregon still with a tremendous resume, one of the most second or third most quad 1 wins in the country. Kansas as a 3 seed. Purdue climbing quickly. They went from a 6 seed in our first bracketology released to a 5 seed to a 4 seed. They're up to a 3 seed. They look good. Michigan State rounding out the Big Ten. I do have Michigan State as the automatic bid from the Big Ten right now. They're the only undefeated team. I think it's probably going to, well, I guess it's a Big Ten tournament, so anything can happen. First 4 seed, I have Houston. Houston is third in the net. They're first at Bart Torvik, which is one of the team sheet metrics, and still have them as a 4 seed. You know, the quadrant metrics haven't been as great. Don't really have an elite win yet. Texas A&M is your next 4 seed. Ole Miss and Mississippi State. As I said, A&M, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State, very similar resumes. Same with Illinois. Illinois, very similar resume. I put them as the first 5 seed. Could easily swap them out with any of these 4 seeds. This was the toughest seed to pick. Illinois is hard to rank because they're very highly rated in many computer metrics, but they have 5 losses and no real, like, wow, that's as good of a win as you can have. At Indiana, that's tough to do, but, you know, love to see them go and beat a Purdue, or we'll see what they do at home with some of these tough Big Ten matchups. I guess that win at Oregon was about as good as you can get, but so yeah, they've got a good resume. Could easily flip them out. Memphis as the next 5 seed, Wisconsin as a 5 seed, and West Virginia up to a 5 seed. 6 seeds, Michigan, Missouri. UConn falling a little bit quickly to a 6 seed right now. Louisville, yes, Louisville as a 6 seed. Louisville, Michigan, and Missouri as 6 seeds, with West Virginia as a 5 seed. As bad as those teams were last year, that's college basketball. That's the NIL portal. That is what can happen in this day in college basketball. And the 7 seeds, starting it off, Arizona, Utah State, who is projected to win the Mountain West, St. John's. St. John's might seem a little bit low. Yes, I have them top 15 in my rankings, down as a 7 seed in this. Not great in the quadrants, quite frankly. No real elite wins, so we'll see when they really get tested. Clemson as the 7 seed, Texas Tech as the first 8 seed, Georgia, Baylor, and Vanderbilt rounding out the 8 seeds. The 9 seeds, Creighton. Creighton goes from the first 4 to a 9 seed after that elite win at UConn. Gonzaga down to a 9 seed, San Diego State down to a 9 seed, Oklahoma as a 9 seed as well. 10 seeds, St. Mary's, UCLA, North Carolina, Pitt, and the first 11 seed is Maryland. So that will lead us into the bubble conversation, which we will switch graphics. Go to that. As mentioned, the last 4 buys, UCLA, North Carolina, Pitt, Maryland as the last team with a bye. In our first 4 matchups, we have Nebraska still in the tournament, hanging on by a thread, taking on Cincinnati right there, and then New Mexico taking on Indiana. Indiana, our last team in right now. Now, the first 4 out. The first team out, I have UCF. If UCF would have just held on to that Houston win, you're probably looking at a last 4 bye team. Still right here in the conversation. Texas as your second team out, Iowa, and then Penn State. Your next 4 out, I have SMU, Northwestern, Wake Forest, and how about Florida State? Florida State as the 8th team out, as mentioned, would probably have Xavier as about the 9th or 10th team out. So moving back to the bracketology graphic, UC Irvine as your last 11 seed. They're the best mid-major as of now. VCU as a 12 seed. Those 2 teams could easily flip at any point. Same goes for Drake. Drake could enter the conversation as our next 12 seed. McNeese and Yale out of the Ivy League. 13 seeds starting off with Liberty. Liberty, not really running away with the conference, but I still think they're the highest ranked team in most computers. I think they're still the best team in the Conference USA. Lipscomb as the 13 seed. Arkansas State as the 13 seed. That would be a scary team to take on. Same goes for Grand Canyon as the last 13 seeds. Starting off the 14 seeds, we got Samford, High Point, Charleston, North Dakota State, and then the 15 seeds, Akron out of the MAC, Purdue, Fort Wayne out of the Horizon, Northern Colorado, and Bryant. Starting off the 16 seeds, Quinnipiac and Norfolk State getting a automatic into a 16 versus 1 matchup. And in the playing games, Central Connecticut State taking on Little Rock, and then Southern taking on Colgate out of the Patriot. That is the entire seed list for January 21st. Now let's dive into the games to watch. Starting today on Tuesday, we have a great Tuesday to talk about. Vanderbilt travels to number 4 Alabama. This game's at 7 o'clock on the SC Network. Vanderbilt, an underdog by 12 points in this one. Alabama been playing great. 12. Will they have a little bit of a hangover game after a tough one at Kentucky where they got the job done. Very exhausting game. We'll see. 7 o'clock SEC Network at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Number 14, Mississippi State travels to number 6, Tennessee. Tennessee favored by 6 in this one. I don't think that's enough points. I think Tennessee might really rebound after that loss at Vanderbilt and just dominate. Really defensively dominate in this one. 7 o'clock on ESPNU, Texas Tech travels to Cincinnati. Texas Tech favored by 2.5 on the road at Cincinnati. Cincinnati with a huge opportunity here. Texas Tech has an 8 seed. Cincinnati last 4 in, they got a chance. Good chance to get the job done in that one. Their offense needs to show up. At 7:30 on Peacock, Ohio State travels to number 10, Purdue. Purdue favored by 10.5 in that one. Ohio State, this is the least of their worries in that program right now, even though they're really starting to fall off right now. 8 o'clock on ESPN Plus, UCF, as mentioned, first team out in our bracketology, travels to number 3, Iowa State. Iowa State favored by 15.5 in this one. This is a tough spot for UCF coming off a Iowa State team who I still think is the best team in the Big 12. Coming off of a loss on the road, they get it at home against UCF. Tough spot. 9 o'clock, SEC Network. Number 22, Missouri travels to Texas. Texas favored by 2.5. Texas, one of the first couple teams out. Need a win bad. Can they get the job done? At 9 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, Arizona State travels to number 23, West Virginia. West Virginia favored by 8. Arizona State needs it so badly. They're still somewhat in the conversation. They've been horrible in the Big 12. They need it bad. 9 o'clock on the ACC Network, maybe the most underrated game of the night. Number 25, Louisville travels to SMU. SMU is favored by 1.5 in this one. SMU, one of the first couple teams out. If they can get a huge win, they might enter the tournament as of now. 9 o'clock on FS1, Creighton, coming off that huge win, travels to DePaul, who picked up their first win. Creighton favored by 7.5 on the road. That's a sneaky one. Don't lose that one if you're Creighton. At 9 o'clock on ESPN, North Carolina, who's hanging on by a thread, one of the last 4 byes, travels to Wake Forest. Wake Forest, one of the first couple teams out. Wake Forest favored by 1.5 in that one. Wake Forest not playing as bad a basketball as they were earlier in the year. They're starting to play better. They're still hated by the computers, quite frankly. North Carolina not so loved by the computers either. So this might be a battle for like the 3rd/4th best team in the ACC. At 9:30 on Peacock, number 18, Wisconsin travels to UCLA. UCLA favored by 3.5 on that one. Long trip for Wisconsin in that one. UCLA coming off a good win against Iowa. Will they keep it going? We will see. Then on Wednesday, we've got a pretty solid day yet again because, Big Ten, SEC, Big East, a lot of big games all around the country. Starting with Indiana traveling to Northwestern. Indiana at Northwestern. Northwestern is favored by 4 in this game. This game's at 7 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. Number 9, Kansas travels to TCU, also at 7 o'clock, but this one's on ESPNU. Kansas is favored by 7 on the road. We just saw what TCU did to Baylor. Can they get the job done and maybe even enter the bubble somewhat conversation? We'll see. That would be a masterclass job by Jamie Dixon because that roster is not that great. At 7 o'clock on FS1, Xavier coming off that huge win at Marquette. The top 2 teams in the Big East right now, Marquette and St. John's, and Xavier gets to travel to St. John's this time, where St. John's is favored by 8, 7 o'clock on FS1. Now, number 5, Florida travels to South Carolina. South Carolina, one of those winless teams in conference play, 7 o'clock on the SEC Network. Florida favored by 10, even on the road. A battle in the Mountain West, Nevada, who is not winning games but is still a good team, travels to number 22, Utah State. Utah State is favored by 6 in this one. This game's at 9 o'clock on FS1, Mountain West After Dark. 9 o'clock on the SEC Network. Number 23, Georgia, travels to Arkansas. Arkansas, once again, one of those teams without a win. Arkansas is favored by 2 in this one. Georgia coming off 2 losses in a row. Can they rebound and go beat a struggling Arkansas team? The game of the night is at 9 o'clock on ESPN2, where number 11 Texas A&M travels to number 21 Ole Miss. Ole Miss is favored by 3 in this one. 9 o'clock ESPN2. Texas A&M, keep in mind, will Wade Taylor play? He's been out for a little bit. Will he be back for this big matchup against Ole Miss? On Thursday, we've got only 2 games to talk about. Maryland travels to number 19 Illinois. Illinois is favored by 8 in this one, 9 o'clock on FS1. And at 9 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, San Francisco travels to St. Mary's. St. Mary's in the tournament as of now, favored by 8 in this one. Don't drop this one. Don't drop this one at home. And then on Friday, we've got a couple games to talk about. Starting at 7 o'clock on FS1, Villanova travels to number 7 Marquette. Villanova just lost at home to Georgetown. They're out of the tournament as of now, and Kyle Neptune's fiery seat got even fierier once again. After picking up some big wins, they just are not coached well, quite frankly. Marquette is favored by 10 at home over Villanova. At 8 o'clock on Fox, number 20 Michigan travels to number 17 Purdue. These are the old rankings, so keep in mind if I misspoke, I apologize. But Michigan travels to Purdue, 8 o'clock on Fox. Purdue is favored by 5 in that one. Purdue's rolling. Michigan needs to get back on track. At 9 o'clock on FS1, Penn State travels to Iowa. Iowa favored by 3 in that one. 2 teams I have in the next 4 out, so both teams really need a win there. 9 o'clock on ESPNU, a battle in the A10. St. Bonaventure travels to VCU. VCU is favored by 8 in that one. The Bonnies got off to a blazing hot start, have lost a few lately. VCU just continuing to roll right now. That is going to do it for the show today. Thanks to everyone who stuck with us. Kind of a quicker podcast here. We are going to post that bracketology on our Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, at Bracket Science 2S's. Feel free to go check that out. Everyone have a safe rest of the week. Enjoy the college hoops. Football is done. It's college hoops time. Everyone take care. See you later.